what I like to hear. Let's welcome then our next speaker. He is Jeremy Carter, the co-founder of Cirrus Assessment and CEO of Sentira XR. He focuses, as part of Sentira XR, on using virtual reality in educational assessments, particularly in medical training. So we look forward to hearing more about that. Please give him a very big round of applause.
Afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much for coming back after lunch. It's always a relief when people make it back from the buffet. So I'll do my best to make sure that you keep awake and energized as we move into the last part of our day. As part of my introduction, I'm kind of wearing two hats today. As mentioned, I'm co-founder of Cirrus. We founded the business in 2014, and I also have the privilege of being the CEO of Sentira XR, a virtual reality software development company. Obviously, we've heard from our previous speakers this morning about the benefits of deploying e-assessment, as well as from Professor Wall on sort of the responsible use of AI technology. I'm going to try and bring all of those elements together this afternoon. And I'll take a step back and start talking a little bit about the technology, starting with Cirrus and then moving into virtual reality as well, which is the next generation. And that will form part of it, looking at exciting new developments. So a little bit more about me. Getting a bit long in the tooth now in learning and assessment, over 25 years. And I remember when innovation in assessment was a hotspot question. So a hotspot question is a static image where you mark where the correct answer is, and somebody has to click on it. And wow, that was blowing minds back then. I can safely say that I've never been more excited about our industry and the opportunities going forward than I am now. And the pace of change is unprecedented. And the opportunities that brings for all of us, educators, businesses, and students and learners is fantastic. But it is down to us to grasp that opportunity and to take it forward. So, onto the actual technology itself. I'm going to start by looking at workflow. What is the kind of workflow behind an assessment platform? And I'll take this opportunity as well to talk about, obviously, the projects that you heard about this morning. Fantastic, brilliantly successful projects. And I think it's really key to point out that one of the key factors that I saw in all of those projects and all of the descriptions wasn't just about the technology. The technology isn't a silver bullet. It doesn't fix everything. It doesn't magically plug in and happen. The key criteria for all of that success was people, teamwork, I think, as mentioned, the Scrum mentality. And you need all of those factors together in order to deliver success. The technology part, in terms of a workflow, what you can see on the screen now, the parts that are in the orange circles are the core elements of the Cirrus platform, from creating the exam to delivering it, marking it, giving out the results, and so on. And then the two parts at the end are integrations, so that when you bring those three together, you can run the entire assessment process through a single platform. So that means that you've got every element at your disposal. And students can then start to manage some of this process themselves in terms of actually booking space to take an exam and receiving at the end of that their exam credential. And then the technology kind of underpins all of those elements, and that's managed centrally by the institutions and organizations that we've heard from this morning. So huge strides have been made in the way that those workflow areas kind of happen and how users and people interact with them. And that, in turn, is aiding what I call the next generation of innovation in assessment. So we'll look at some of those latest developments, and we'll break them down into kind of four areas. starting with exam creation and design, moving on to security and integrity, the student experience itself, and we've heard that a number of times today. It is absolutely fundamental, marking and feedback, and how all of those things are evolving and providing better experiences. So with exam creation and design, what we're moving into, and I think, again, this is a word that has been used a few times this morning as well, is authenticity, authentic exams. Authentic exams require authentic question types. So some of the areas that have been talked about already in terms of Office 365, creating that environment where a student or a learner is interacting with an exam question in exactly the same way that you would be expecting them to do that in their professional life, using the tools that they will need to use when they're working in order to demonstrate their knowledge of that. It's really fundamental. So obviously we've got lots of use cases in accountancy, finance sector, but that also moves into sort of mathematics as well, and being able to use complex mathematical structures in assessments that are then auto-marked, and programming. So being actually asked to use the language of programming in your assessment to demonstrate that you can code and it will run. And having all of that within the platform starts to build out those authentic experiences where students can apply their knowledge in an exam setting. And that's what assessment in the 21st century should be about. So realistic and authentic tests that enable you as an organization to test how your students' deep level of knowledge, where it really sits, and provide them with the feedback on that. So the Cirrus platform also includes functionality that you can see on the screen now, such as the test blueprint. So this is about making the process of getting those exams and assessments built quickly and efficiently and accurately, fairly, reliably, robustly. So a test blueprint takes elements such as learning objectives. So this is your curriculum. This is what you would be expecting a student to learn, and you want to obviously test them. So you've got your learning objectives, and you've also got your taxonomies in terms of levels of knowledge that they need to be applying. And you put those things together, and you can create a template for an assessment. And then the magic happens after that. With a single click of a button, you can produce multiple test forms instantly that meet the criteria. So what you can do then is build a set of test forms that are identical in terms of the subject areas, the learning objectives that it tests, and they're all fair, reliable tests, but each student, theoretically, could get a different version. So we call that LOFT, linear on-the-fly testing. And the test blueprint is an absolute fundamental building block in terms of that. Security and integrity, actually, LOFT plays a large role in security and integrity because it can imagine that, obviously people start to worry about tests when they expose their questions and their items out into the real world, that people are going to copy them, students are going to pass the questions on to each other, and so on. If you're using test blueprints, the linear on-the-fly testing approach, that means that each student can get a unique version of the exam. The item exposure is brought down. You know that they're all reliable tests because the psychometric data that sits in there in behind it is telling you so. And then, therefore, the test itself becomes more secure and less likely to be kind of leaked or copied. Again, we've talked about the different methods of delivering the assessments. So remote proctoring we've talked a little bit about this morning as well. Test center delivery, again, we talked about that. The test center delivery is still an absolutely valid mode of delivery using technology. So we have partnerships with organizations that set up those exam halls with laptops, and the software then delivers the assessment to a large cohort of students all in the same place. So the flexibility and the modality of delivery is there to support you and your students, whichever their preference for taking tests is. Data security and access clearly is very, 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 very important. So, in terms of having systems that are GDPR compliant, ISO 27001 security tested, helps provide that reassurance that your exam data and your data of your students, and obviously their responses and answers and everything like that, is all safe and secure and is managed properly to the correct international standards. And anti-plagiarism. So Turnitin, I think, was mentioned. Obviously, that's one of the anti-plagiarism tools which Cirrus has an integration with. So all of those factors kind of come into play to ensure that your exam programs meet the robust requirements from a regulatory perspective, your own internal processes, confidence of the market, confidence of your students in terms of what it is that you're delivering to them. And then we come to the students themselves. And it's great to hear that in pretty much every presentation this morning that the student is at the heart of it. That's absolutely how it should be. When we first set up the company back in 2014, it was actually primarily because we wanted to enhance the test taker experience. And we were getting frustrated with the organizations that we were working in at the time that seemed to have been forgotten. Like, it didn't really matter what the student experience was because they had nowhere else to go. As obviously, markets and competition evolved, that was no longer the case. So we always had the mantra is like, it doesn't matter how pretty the system looks, how rich in functionality it is, if when a student sits down to take an exam and they press go and it doesn't work, nothing else that you've done matters. So that's always at the core of everything that we set out to do in Cirrus. And that includes, not just they press go and it starts working, but it's things like accessibility. And one of the reasons that, I kind of got into sort of technology-based assessment was because I know the power that certification and qualifications has to impact people's lives for the better. So why wouldn't we be looking for ways that we can spread that out further? And obviously, the use of technology enables us to do that. And then we start to think about, well, you need to be building into accessibility. I call it accessibility by design. So when you're thinking about the assessments, you actually build that into your design process and make sure that you're using platforms that will support you in that vision. And then feedback, really important for students, really important, both in a formative and a summative sense. I think it's always, I think I did an experiment quite a few years ago where we put up some learning material on screen, or the ability to click it on screen, and we also put a test on screen, and we gave it to some students. Before they clicked on the learning, they went to the assessment straight away. They wanted to see what they knew, but they wanted to get the feedback on that so that they could then step into the learning and understand the points that they really needed to focus in on. And I think that is kind of ubiquitous across the education space. People, they want that feedback. They want to understand where they're going. And I think when we talk about the AI aspects, which we will talk about a bit later on as well, I think the thing that when PJ was talking about, well, you can put in the question into ChatGPT and it will give you the answer. Okay, it will. But I don't think you'll take away one of the fundamental human aspects of learning, which I think is the majority of people after that would go, but why? Well, why is it given that answer? Let me start to deconstruct that and find out how ChatGPT got to that answer when perhaps I didn't, because that's why I've put it in. And he talked about, a use case with one of his children that, okay, we can't solve this maths problem. We'll go to our phone, we'll put it into ChatGPT. I had exactly the same scenario with my daughter. She couldn't solve a maths problem. We went to ChatGPT. The second question that we asked it after it gave the answer was, well, can you then deconstruct that, break that down into the process of getting to that answer so that she could then identify where she'd gone wrong? And that's what feedback is all about. And then marking. So obviously, students gone and taken a test, and it needs to be marked. And I think a lot of people who here from the academic world were all giving out a little bit about like marking and what a pain it is, a chore, something that they don't enjoy, but obviously it's got to be done. Consistency of marking is massively important. And so having a solid, reliable, workflow-based marking platform that is logical, helps support you in your processes, is really key, because actually then it speeds up that marking, and it ensures consistency, because you can build in tools such as blind double marking, so you've got multiple examiners looking at the same student responses without knowing what the other examiners say. So you can build in all of these checks and balances so that you have confidence that when you actually get to that decision on the result of that assessment, you can do so with confidence. And when you can do that with confidence, that then gives out confidence to the students. It gives out confidence to your external stakeholders and the market in general as well. And that's really important. And then when we come back to the feedback as well, being able to provide that in a format that makes sense to the learners of today is really key. So this isn't dry kind of, well, you got X right, X wrong. You're able to annotate scripts. So if they've submitted an extended response, you can annotate that. You can identify to them areas where, well, you were marked down because of this. And you can do that either through the annotations, but you can also do it through multimedia. So we have lecturers and teaching staff that record short videos for their students and provide that as feedback, and audio feedback as well. So having all of these tools that actually then helps those students further engage in their learning is really important. And then finally, and we will, I think we all keep saying this, and we're building up Sojin, AI assisted, and I'll emphasize the word assisted, marking has the potential to further improve all of those processes and that experience. So the next part of my sort of presentation and what I'm going to talk to you about is further innovations. So we talked about like the core existing, everything that I talked to you about at the moment is existing technology. We're going to talk about some of these other areas that are coming in at a rapid pace. So, AI, let's talk about AI again. AI-powered item generation. So this is coming soon. And again, I'll use the word assistance. So we're not taking the human element out of this, but what we're doing is by utilizing AI, you can start to reduce the mundane aspects of item creation. And actually, subject matter experts are more focused on building high-quality items because we can take away some of the actual stuff that they have to do, which is the mundane part of the job. Data-driven insights, because we're collecting so much data in terms of even down to how long does it, on average, does it take a student to a cohort of students to answer a particular question? Getting it down to, well, on this question, the average time to answer is 35 seconds. And on this question, it's 2.5 minutes. Why is that? And does that then correlate to the difficulty level of the question that we're getting from the psychometric data? All of that is there. Building dashboards that enable you to then get those insights is really, really key. Personalized assessments. I think, that was, Jerry, you were talking, waxing lyrical about that. Absolutely, 100% right. Coming down the road very fast. And personalization is really key. We've seen personalization in learning, and now we'll see it in personalization in assessments as well. And now I'm going to flip over into virtual reality, which is kind of where my journey's taken me in terms of the assessment space. And that's because these things here are essentially, it's just another mobile device now. This means that we can scale out learning, training, and assessment through the use of other technologies. And that's where Sentira comes in. So my marketing team have put up the word pioneering medical and healthcare simulation. Now, I know a lot of what we've been talking about today is in the financial services sector and accounting and what have you, but there are lessons that we can absolutely learn from what you'll see this afternoon that can be applied in that context as well. And what I'm going to do next is not something that I don't do very often, which is I'm going to shut up and stop talking. And for the next 30 seconds, if it works, we're going to show you a short video of some of the work that we're doing with Sentira, talking to artificial intelligent virtual patients, performing some medical procedures. There's a meeting room in there and I'll explain about the meeting room because that's actually quite exciting. But yeah, let's press play and see. We should be good.
Hello, my name's Emily. I'm a junior doctor.
Thank you for coming to see us. I'm really worried about my daughter.
What's your baby called and how old is she?
This is baby Mina. She's 11 months old now.
We have now traveled to a section of the lungs. You can see the bronchioles and their attached alveoli. As salbutamol binded to the beta-2 receptors, which are a type of G protein-coupled receptor, its conformation changes and releases an activated stimulatory G protein that binds with adenylyl cyclase, an important regulator of airway smooth muscle function.
Can I have your consent for this consultation?
That is fine, thank you.
What are the symptoms of your cancer?
I was feeling really tired and I had lost weight. At first I put this down to my worries over my health, but I lost almost a stone over a few weeks and could not shake this cough. I then coughed up some blood and went to the doctor, and she sent me for an X-ray and sent me up straight away to see the lung specialists.
Okay, so the meeting room that you saw there, the people that were in there were in completely, well, they're even in different continents. So we had some consultants in the Middle East and some consultants in the UK. And they met in that room to discuss a cancer patient. And what they were able to do is bring up the scans in 3D of that patient where they could, they each had a copy in front of them. There was a central thing as well. They could spin that person around, look at where the cancer was, blah, blah, and they discussed what the next steps for the treatment of that patient was. This is revolutionary stuff. You've got, we have there's some preeminent kind of cancer specialists in Manchester, and they were the ones that were sat with the consultants in the Middle East who didn't quite have that same level of knowledge, but they were able to do that. They didn't have to travel. They didn't have to like go on a Skype kind of like video meeting or whatever. They could do that in virtual reality and see the scans in real time and discuss that. And then the other aspects of that were obviously, I think one of the things that was a theme this morning was about empathy. So, how did that, this is where the assessment bit comes in, how did you talk to that patient? Was your bedside manner any good? Were you looking at them? Did you make any eye contact with the patient? Or were you just stood looking at your board, ticking the box? And what we know is that when you do that, you don't get the right information back from that patient. And these are all the skills that need to be taught to the next generation of healthcare professionals, because there's increasing evidence of that they come into the workplace. COVID has a part to play with this. They don't have the communication skills anymore. They find it very difficult to interact, not least a patient, but with each other as peers, working in a team. All of these skills are things that we need to be really picking up and working on. And that's where I say it transcends beyond medical, because any kind of team working environment requires skills. And I think with the advent of kind of remote working, remote technology, that ability to empathically connect with your co-workers is under threat as well. And so this is the sort of technology that we want to apply that help people understand kind of what they say and the impact of it. No, hold on. Here we go. So why did we kind of start looking at virtual reality, apart from the fact that it's cool technology and it's fun? And that's because it's an active experience. So people really become immersed in this, and invokes a sense of presence. We ran some studies where we put exactly the same scenario and simulation in front of a group of students that put on a headset and those that did it on a laptop. They talked to the same patient about the same things. They could ask the same questions. And we did a post-experience survey with them. And 95% of the students that were immersed in the headset referred to the patient by their name afterwards. And those that did it on the laptop or the computer referred to the patient as the avatar or the bot or something like that. Some of them did, or the patient. Very few actually had made that human connection and used the patient's name. And that, for us, was a huge light bulb moment. And it aids learning retention. And we talk about, like, you learn by doing and you learn by practicing. And these are things that students don't feel in the medical world. They don't feel confident in, because they don't get the opportunity to practice with real patients. Those opportunities are very hard to come by now. More students going into the system, more pressure on the system, less opportunity to actually interact with patients. And again, that transcends beyond medical into all sorts of different walks of life as well. But when we're looking at using VR for assessment, we have to make sure that it meets those core principles that are behind any kind of assessment program. Is it valid? Is it reliable? Is it authentic? And is it accessible? And the technology, again, I'll say, is not the silver bullet, but it helps us enable greater accessibility. So we are now in a position where, if you want to become, you're a nurse from abroad who wants to come and work in the UK, or you're a doctor, a GP who wants to come in and work in the UK. In order to take the exam, you've got to fly into the UK to one of 4, I think, test locations to do your OSCE exam. Okay? How are you going to practice for that? The actual amount of money that you need to spend to come over and do a really high-stakes exam, you've got to make sure that you're ready. So we're in a position now where we can help prepare those students by putting them into simulated environments, simulated kind of OSCE stations that they are likely to encounter when they come in and take the exam for real. And so we look at assessment using VR mainly for performance-based assessment. And that means that, it's time-bound, it's open-ended, so that means you're free to do whatever you want to do within that assessment itself. So you can stand in front of a patient and not ask them any questions. Or you can stand and ask that question ask that patient where they went on holiday, and the patient will answer. The patient might start to get a little bit annoyed, in fact, and say, well, why are you asking me that? I'm here, I don't feel very well. So we build the technology that enables the contextualized conversation to take place. So that means that we have a high degree of authenticity with all our assessments, and they're all process as well, or the process or product oriented. So you saw a part in the video where you're working on a baby, putting oxygen. Okay, that's a baby that's had a tracheostomy. The tracheostomy tube has become blocked. That's an algorithm card. I don't know, you can't see it particularly clearly, but that's the algorithm card that sits in every hospital in the UK, next to every tracheostomy patient. They also, when they leave the hospital, they carry it with them. And that's the algorithmic process for unblocking tracheostomy, which is a life and death situation. How are you going to practice that, really? So what we do is that we build that muscle memory, because people can practice that over and over and over and over again in VR, so that when they do encounter that, they're able to, that muscle memory kicks in and they're able to be more effective. We'll start by saving people's lives. And the last thing is that it's complex. Now, these things are complex. And what this does is that it starts to open up the possibilities of those things that we found, that's really difficult. I don't know how we're going to assess people on this. Well, now we have the means and tools in which we can start to do that. And the final thing that I will talk about is AI-based feedback. Now, I'm not talking about it in terms of auto-grading an essay and providing feedback on that. I'm talking about actually analyzing your spoken word and giving you feedback on your tone of voice, your brusqueness, your directness, and your empathy. So feeding back to people about how they're interacting, in this case with a patient, but like I said, actually put them into an office environment where actually they've done some financial analysis. Results aren't particularly great, so they've got to go in and talk to the CEO and have a difficult conversation. How can they present their data in a way that avoids conflict but delivers the message that they want? And we can start to assess and provide them with feedback and provide them with opportunities to practice that, so that actually they can do that more effectively. And that's what we want. We want people to go into the workplace and be effective, and we've got to help them on that journey. And I will finish by saying I'm going off to Berlin next week to talk at a conference, and it's a very AI-based conference, and one of the things that we've been asked to sort of discuss is AI replacing humans, and everybody being worried about jobs and so on. And I'm a huge advocate of AI, but I'm also a huge advocate of humans. And I do not believe that AI will replace humans in the assessment process for the following reasons. Because human judgment is still way better than AI when it comes to things like ethics and morals and judgments on those things. The assessment of someone's creativity and originality, and an algorithm cannot do that. Contextual understanding, actually having a contextual understanding of that learner, that student, their background, the challenges that they may have had coming into the assessment and so on. AI, not a clue about any of that. The ethical oversight of AI-driven assessments. Okay, so we can use AI as a tool to build better assessments, But really, we need an oversight of that, and that has to come from a human. And that goes as well for the actual assessment design process. So again, we can use the tools to build all of these things, to build the questions, to quickly build the assessments. Okay, are we going to actually just like go, yeah, I'm sure that did a great job, I'm going to press publish and going to get everyone to take the... No, we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is make the people that are working in assessment more efficient, enable them to use their subject matter knowledge to build better assessments and deliver those out to our learners and give them a better experience. And that's everything from me. Thank you very much for listening.
Used different techniques, I suppose, in different areas that they have been trained to do, to practice on. How has that translated them when they've actually had to go in and do real life scenarios? Well, we're at the beginning of that journey. So it's been used with current students, and what they're saying is that they feel more confident, and it's about that confidence threshold about particular situations. Obviously, the tracheostomy one is fairly extreme, but that's actually been used by the National Tracheostomy Safety Project. At the moment, what they can only do is run like a couple of sessions a year where they get people to travel from all over, and then they have mannequins and dummies, and they're like, well, no, this is transformative because people can then practice that over and over again. And actually, you'll only have to put it into practice maybe once or twice in your career, but you need to have that knowledge of doing so. I think where we're seeing the most impact at the moment is on that communication side, the communication skills. So one of the biggest challenges from the Nursing and Midwifery Council have said is that, yes, the current cohort of students really finds it difficult to just talk to each other, let alone to patients, and how can we, so that's their biggest challenge, and they can't get them in to clinical placements because there's just not enough of them. So yeah, using that sort of technology enables them to do that, so that when they are faced, they have that confidence level of being able to talk to a patient in a much more empathetic way. Great. Any questions?
The VR headset does work. If anybody fancies having a go at a tracheostomy, maybe after the drinks reception, yeah? You'll see it's a stressful environment. The alarms are going off. We can make the mums start shouting at you.
We'll look for maybe volunteers to do that after the drinks reception. But just in terms of feedback from, you're talking about the different organisations being involved in that, from students themselves, that you were talking about maybe that weren't communicating. Have you heard back from them? What way have they said that has helped them?
Yes, I mean, it quite nicely for us. There's a group of, I won't mention the university, but the group of students, after seeing it and having a go, as students do, got a petition up. They created a petition which they submitted to the faculty that said, you better put VR into our curriculum for learning, otherwise we're going to be really unhappy. And actually, universities are starting now to look at that. Well, if they don't do that, and other universities are, then students will not choose to study with them. It doesn't matter if they're a red brick kind of Russell Group university or not. If you haven't got what students are expecting, then they won't choose you. So yeah, that's the sort of impact we're seeing from students who are now demanding it, because they're the digital generation. Let's not forget, It's digital first for them. And yeah, the universities are having to wake up to that a little bit.
Jeremy, thank you so much. A big round of applause for Jeremy.
Thank you.